Yo guys, and welcome to another Dark Rain video. This time I'm going to be showing you the morphed powers for the Aedric spear. This is a skill line on the Templar type person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through with you what they are normally and then what they become if you decide to morph them and what they're best situated for. So let's start off. So at the top you've got one of your ultimate abilities. Now this one in particular is called Radial Sweep, and it's actually really useful if you are melee, DPSing and in PvP as well. So as you can see here, it hits a reasonable amount of damage to anybody in front of you. You sort of swing your spear around your head, smashing everybody for like holy magic damage. And then after that, you get damage over time every 2 seconds, and that's actually pretty sizable. It's a really good supercharge because it's extremely cheap to cast. You can have this thing on permanent send pretty much, provided you're getting some weapon combos down the range. So there are 2 different things that this morphs into, so I'm going to show you what they are. The first one is Empowering Sweep. This again is extremely useful in PvP or if you're just soloing dungeons. So when you morph this particular one into Empowering Sweep, it reduces the damage that you receive by 15% for 8 seconds. 15% is a lot of damage mitigation, extremely useful. But the great thing about this is if you're getting mobbed by an enormous group or you're in PvP and there's lots of them around you and you hit this, you will gain an additional 4% damage mitigation for each enemy you strike with it. So this is really good for diving into the middle of a group with, hitting it, and then just going to town with all of your melee DPS powers. So the next one is Crescent Sweep. Now this again is pretty good. Now something like this I'd probably use in dungeons where you know there's a healer with you. So you don't have to rely on Empowering Sweep so much, you can just use Crescent. So basically anybody that's directly in front of you takes an additional 33% damage, which isn't bad guys. So let's say when I activate this it's doing 3300 damage, that will do an additional 1100 magic damage to anybody who's in front of me. However, it doesn't buff the damage over time aspect of this ultimate. As you can see, it's just for the initial hit. So next up, one of your regular active abilities is Puncturing Strikes. This is a great move, really good. You sort of launch a melee attack in front of you and you're sort of very stabby with your spear. Very good. Anybody who's directly in front of you takes additional damage, 140%, which is quite a lot. And it also damages anybody that's near the area. As you can see, it says target area radius 8 meters. It's really good. This is the backbone of my melee DPS, if I'm perfectly honest with you. So what does it morph into? 2 different things, Biting Jabs and Puncturing Sweep. Biting Jabs is good if you're going for a mixed build, because with Biting Jabs it will now cost stamina instead of magicka. So if you find you're burning through your magicka all the time, you could always go 50-50 and do this followed by a magicka attack, this followed by a magicka attack, and just keep them going between the 2, and you'll extend the length at which you have resources to cause damage with. And it also means that it now scales off of your weapon damage and your max stamina, which is good. So the more stamina you have, the more damage it will do. Also grants Major Savary, increasing weapon critical rating. That's not bad at all. That is a sizable amount as well, 2 grams worth for 8 seconds. Really good. So if you are running with a stamina based build, Biting Jabs is the way forward for you. Unfortunately, if you do go the Biting Jabs route, you don't get any self heals. So if you are in the thick of it and you don't have any way to mitigate that damage or heal yourself, you are going to go down quite quickly. Now, whenever I spec into Biting Jabs, the best thing you can do is down them before they down you, and that's pretty much how you have to run it when you're running with Biting Jabs. Next up is Puncturing Sweep. This is outstanding. It says it heals you based on the damage done. So for 40% of the damage you cause, you get that back in health. Now I've been rock bottom against quite hard bosses that hit quite hard or they put up decent damage over time, you spam puncturing sweep in their face and it will keep you standing. Especially if you complement it with another heal over time like rapid regeneration or something like that. This is absolutely awesome. You put down a lot of hurt with it, keeps you standing, and it costs magicka. So if you're going for a magicka based build, I suggest you take puncturing sweep. Hits pretty hard as well. Next up, piercing javelin. Not something I use that often other than for fun. It's quite expensive to cast and only hits them once. It's a fun power though. You basically become Hercules / some sort of Spartan god and you launch a spear at distance, spearing the enemy through the chest. And when it hits them, it knocks them down. But it'll only knock down certain enemies. So it's usually weaker ads that are just pottering around the open world. You can knock them down with this. A boss you will not knock down with piercing javelin. Not going to happen. So what does it morph into? Aurora Javelin. This is good. So the further away you are, the more damage it causes. So an up to 40% increase in the damage it causes. So here you can see that it causes 2,000 worth of magic damage. So let's say I am at 19 meters away and I launch this bad boy. I'm going to get approximately 800 more damage back. I don't know the math, guys, I've just done that off the top of my head. So it's going to hit for around 2,800 at range. But as you can see, it's quite expensive to cast. So not really a power that I'm overly keen on, other than for its knockdown effect, because it's hilarious. So the next one is Binding Javelin. Now this costs stamina. So again, you've got one for magicka based builds, one for stamina based builds. So as you can see, the more stamina you've got with this, the harder it will hit. And instead of it causing magic damage, it's now physical damage. Also, it increases the knockdown duration, which again can be fairly useful, but I think you're better off with Aurora Javelin if you're a magic build. Stamina build, yeah, this is good. Especially if you're getting mobbed by a large group of mobs. One of them happens to be a big heavy hitter. You punch Binding Javelin into their chest, they sit down for 3 seconds, giving you a bit of a break. What's up next? Focused Charge. I love this thing. This is it's basically a lunge, and what it's really useful for is closing the gap between you and the enemy, especially if you're melee based and you just want to get straight into their face and putting down some serious hurt. So, what does it do? You launch straight at the enemy with this awesome locking lance, boom, and you hit them for 2,600 magic damage. Now, if you see a mage in the distance or a healer slinging off one of their abilities that's charged, or they're just healing people, or even an archer that's charging his bow, if you launch at them with focused charge, boom, you get them stunned for 3 seconds. Really useful, especially in dungeons. What does it morph into? 2 different things. Top one, Explosive Charge. This is the one I tend to take. It's not that expensive to cast. It's got a nice radius of 5 meters. Good range, and basically what you do is you turn this into an AoE. So if there's a large group of ads and you want to get stuck into them straight away before they start to split up and be all clever with their clever AI, you launch straight into them with Explosive Charge. Boom! All of them get hit for 2.6k damage, and then you can start wailing on them, putting the hurt into them. So the next thing is Toppling Charge. So it always stuns, and casting targets are set off balance. So that's pretty good, but the problem I've had with this is that I have to target someone quite specifically sometimes, and if I'm not really paying attention, I'd rather just have the increased AoE damage, although it is extremely useful if you're looking for a bit more crowd control. But yeah, great move, Focus Charge, big fan of that. Spear Shard. So I see this used quite a lot. I'm not really sure why people are using it the way they use it, but anyway. So what you do is you send your spear into the heavens and you bring down some magic damage onto that particular area. Now, the problem I have with this is it's not that expensive to cast, to be fair. The main bonus you've got with Spear Shards is once it hits the ground, the spear stays in the ground. One of your allies can pick the spear up, and when they do,
it restores 25% of their stamina plus an additional 1700 stamina over 10 seconds. That's pretty good. That's not bad at all. Anybody who's a stamina based DPS who's in your group at that time, they will find this extremely useful. Great move. So what does it morph into? Two different things as always. So the top one is Luminous Shards. So it's a little bit more expensive to cast than it was previously, but it does the same thing, but when your allies pick it up, they will also receive Magicka over 10 seconds, which is a nice boost. It's not a massive amount, so they'll get about 1500 per second over 10 seconds, which isn't bad. But if you're looking for more damage, Blazing Spear is for you. So once you've launched it into the air and it hits the ground, it will deal a small damage over time every second. So that's 250 damage per second over 6 seconds. 6 seconds, so what's that? That's 1500 damage in total. It's not a massive amount, and the problem I see with Blazing Spear is people spamming it. Yeah, it does nice AoE damage, but the problem is if you're spamming it and you expect it into Blazing Spear, every time you recast it, you're wiping out that AoE. It's not functioning, because every time you cast another one, the one that's on the ground vanishes. You're not stacking this event. It doesn't work like that. So it's not worth spamming, guys. Maybe worth putting down right at the start of the fight into a big group and then launching into the attack. But other than that, I would not spam this unless it's Luminous Shards, and then you could spam both. To be fair, it's just that you're losing the AoE effect, which is the damage over time thing. So don't spam it if you go damage over time. Just pop it down. Let that be that. Next up is Sunshield. So this is a really handy shield guide for keeping you standing. So it absorbs the damage equal to 30% of your max health. So the more health you have, the more effective this particular shield is. And if you're in the thick of it, as long as there's a truckload of enemies around you, it gets stronger if you morph it. Currently, I mean, this shield doesn't really make sense as well. So it says here, each successful hit increases the shield strength by 4%. Now, I'm not really sure what that means. Is that with each strike it takes, it gets stronger? Or each enemy I hit, it gets stronger? It's not really very clear. But it does hurt people around you for a K worth of damage when you activate it. So what does it morph into? Two do things as always. So the top one, Radiant Ward. Reduced cost, and the shield is strengthened further for each enemy hit. So it must be when you activate it in the middle of a group, for each enemy that it strikes once you activate it, it will increase its strength by 5%. That must be how it works. So that's not a massive amount more, being an extra 1% more. Then there is Blazing Shield. So it does the exact same thing, only for all the hits that it takes, once it's done, half of the damage it has absorbed will explode when the shield expires, and it will damage all the enemies in the region for that amount of damage. So that's what I've typically charged this into. If you want a more effective shield, go Radiant Ward, slightly cheaper to cast. If you also want to put the hurt out, you want to go Blazing Shield. And my motto is, a dead enemy doesn't cause you damage. Right guys, that is it for all of the morphed abilities for the Aedric Spear on the Templar class. It also has some very, very nice passive abilities, but these you can see clear as day when you go down and scroll through them anyway. You don't need me to go through them. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Genuinely hope this video helps some of you out. We are Dark Rain, and as always, we'll see you in game.